This presentation dives into Level 3 accessibility. At Level 3, we are really focusing on fostering bimodal, bilingual language acquisition, both speaking and signing. Fostering language acquisition is truly complicated because of the number of factors required to acquire language. First and foremost, sign language should be the primary language of instruction. Sign language can support spoken language acquisition. Speaking skills may be developed if the deaf learner has some residual hearing and aids of some sort. But this requires that they can hear everything. But it is integral that we do support bimodal, bilingual, signing and spoken language acquisition. Written content has to meet the student where they're at in terms of their literacy skills. Deaf students struggle to understand written text. We know that's a common challenge for deaf students to develop full fluency in reading and writing spoken languages. Level 3 accessibility has not been written into accessibility laws or policy. There is nothing codified for Level 3 design, yet ironically, it is the most important access level because it deals with the foundational skills of language acquisition. Even the most comprehensively accessible design of learning materials is of no use to a child with no language. All those pretty pictures and videos on a screen teach nothing if the child has no language. So let's consider more closely the effects of language deprivation. It results in limited human contact. This woman here speaks directly to the lack of human interaction caused by language deprivation. And what causes language deprivation? A lack of exposure to quality, consistent language input. Too much of the language input is missed. A deaf child trying to understand what is being spoken by others simply cannot physically perceive it. There is not enough to grasp onto. The same is true for sign language exposure. If the language model is disfluent in sign language, then the child is not getting sufficient input. Growing up without full exposure to a language accessible to the child affects brain development. The language areas of the brain cannot process the inferior input, and brain functions diminish. So let's consider what we mean by quality, consistent exposure to language. First, the child must have enough functional hearing to enable them to acquire oral language skills. If they don't have an adequate level of hearing, then in an auditory-only setting, they will be language deprived. When we talk about full access to spoken conversations, that includes the sound environments of the home and school. The technologies we use, such as cochlear implants, hearing aids, FM systems, and so on, for many students provides partial access to sound. Full access to a native sign language of the deaf community, likewise, needs to be provided in the home and school. Let's consider more carefully the causes of language deprivation. Incomplete access, meaning too much of the input is missing, leads to disfluency. You know the saying, garbage in, garbage out. If the child is only perceiving pockets of information, that's the garbage in. The brain does not have enough to begin piecing together language. So the child's expressive language will be the garbage out. You can see how this makes sense. Children need quality exposure to language. Deaf children's brains are born with the capacity to develop language, just like a non-deaf child. There's nothing biologically wrong with a child's brain. So what is wrong? The social environment prevents the child from perceiving language. Social and cultural beliefs about language acquisition assume that language comes from within the child. The belief is that if the child does not pick up the language, it's something wrong with the child. The child is not smart, which is not true. There are new theories showing language acquisition depends on interaction with language users. Unfortunately, people in many areas of the world feel that sign language is bad and withhold exposing the child to an accessible language in lieu of exposing them to an inaccessible language through speech. There's your recipe for language deprivation. Many professionals, such as teachers, speech therapists, audiologists, confuse language with speech. They equate the two. This is not true. Language is language, whether spoken or signed. The child needs to be exposed to a language. Speech and language are not equivalent. Sign language can be that language. Quality access to spoken languages is not 100% guaranteed with hearing aids and cochlear implants. It's just not always possible to get that much sound in through these aids. So how does language deprivation actually happen? As parents, we didn't always know that our happy baby couldn't hear until they were older. So those early days were lost for language exposure. If the diagnosis is really delayed, the language functions of the brain won't be stimulated as they should be, literally from birth. Exposure to language starting at age 2 or 3 truly impacts the young brain's development. There are many places in the world where schools and services are lacking. There may be no educational opportunities for deaf children. Social services may not be available for families and deaf children. Too many teachers have a very superficial understanding of inclusive education. They think the deaf child in their classroom is picking up language similar to their peers, which is not true. If the child is not exposed to quality, consistent language input, be it signing or spoken, language acquisition will not happen. It will not matter how many years the child goes to school. It won't matter how positive and inviting the classroom environment is toward the deaf child. Language acquisition will not happen. There is this harmful assumption that a deaf child can be educated anywhere in the world, in any community and location, anywhere. But unless there is adequate and appropriate resources and services, the child will end up language deprived. What does language deprivation look like? You can see that the language use is unclear, poorly developed, not consistent with norms and standards for everyday conversation. Many children who are language deprived lack communicative competence. An example would be initiating conversations. A child who is language deprived struggles to start conversations. Natural conversations have a pattern, a beginning, a middle, and an end. But someone language deprived is unaware and may begin with what we would normally consider the end. So you don't understand what they are saying because they have not introduced the topic in an appropriate way. Instead of giving information in a chronological order, the child confusingly explains things in the wrong order. A child who is language deprived struggles to ask questions. They may not know how to construct a question, or confusingly misapplies a thought as a question. The language deprived child may be challenged to answer questions. Even the most basic of questions like, "What's your name?" they're not able to answer. It's unclear what's expected. I've seen many children in this predicament, unaware, not knowing what to say. A child who's language deprived has difficulty expanding or elaborating on ideas and information. They might be able to give short remarks, but don't seem to have the skills to add more explanation. The language deprived child struggles to build on what someone else has said. When it's their turn in a conversation, they are at a loss at what to add. Late language acquisition, say beginning at the age of 10 or 11 or 12, whether spoken or signed, always looks like the language of a young child, say the age of 3, 4, or 5. We still find that many deaf students graduating from high school have a mean reading level of grade 4. Despite 12 years of schooling, they still seem to exit the system at grade 4 level of reading and writing. Because educators don't understand language deprivation, the cycle in deaf education continues. The cause of the child's language deprivation is not within the child. It's the obstacles to access language input. But teachers blame the deaf child for their lack of progress. They're not smart enough. Providing sign language interpreters does not provide this quality access, unfortunately, due to their lack of skills and training. Disfluent sign language models lead to language deprivation as much as the inability to hear what is said in a spoken environment. The deaf child's brain has no exposure to the grammar and structure of a language. What are the lifelong implications of language deprivation? The language-deprived child struggles with their schoolwork, struggles lifelong with reading and writing. Due to their academic struggles, due to the fact that they did not have full access to the curriculum, the lack of full access to social norms, the opportunities for employment are limited. The eligibility for post-secondary training is also very limited. Leaving high school language deprived, struggling with reading and writing, many deaf students are just not equipped to enter post-secondary programs. High school leavers with these diminished opportunities then lack the opportunities for independence and stay at home longer. But there's always good news. With enough effort, the situation can be turned around. Language deprivation can be ameliorated through full access to sign language. This is important. The teaching design should focus on deaf aesthetics, prioritizing visual learning elements. Immersion in a community of fluent signers will also diminish the effects of language deprivation. So how might Pressbooks be of help? Pressbooks is able to support project-based learning. Putting students together on teams will encourage conversations among deaf classmates and peers, creating a social network. Through this sharing, language development will thrive, and the students will feel a sense of pride through completing the project together. Pressbooks can support a hybrid of online and offline learning, so the best of both can be used. Pressbooks supports participatory reading. It's not just gathering people together to discuss a passage of text. It's more than that. Participatory reading connects people online to discuss books, videos, images, to debate and share ideas, to have conversations, to form working groups, to analyze something creative, be it print, images, or video. Pressbooks can support remixing. Any content from the internet can be changed. Use your creativity and play around to integrate and modify others' content into something new, something that you want to use. Level 3 accessibility is managed primarily by teachers and course designers. Designing Level 3 learning materials and resources requires the input and involvement of deaf people. We must always have hope.